Hi there. So I'm going to review for the English portion of the exam and the SLO post test. And so I'm going to use the mantras to review. And so Skill 16 has a list of the mantras for English, and English is the grammar test. So Skill 1, the mantra is when a verb is underlined, trust your ear. When in doubt, identify its subject and make sure singular and plural and tense match the subject. And remember I said if you have an S on one, you won't have an S on the other. So like the kitten ran across the lawn or the kittens ran across the lawn, but there won't be an S on the end of both of them. Skill number 2, when a verb is underlined, identify the subject and cross out the prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase will never count as the subject of the verb. So remember, this is the one that had Margarita with her sisters runs a marketing firm. Margarita runs a marketing firm. You take away with her sisters. So just identify the preposition and then take away the prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase starts with a preposition and goes to the next noun. And then the subject will come before the prepositional phrase and the verb will come after, and you get those to match. Skill 3, when a pronoun is underlined, we must be totally sure what the noun is referring to. If it's unclear in any way, it's incorrect. The underlined pronoun must also match, being like singular or plural, and then must match the noun that it refers to. So you just don't want it to be unclear. You want it to make sure that that if you're talking about it, you don't say he or she without knowing who he or she is. Like in our example, we were talking about grandma, and grandma was in the first paragraph, and then several paragraphs later it said she. We needed to say grandma again. Skill 4, if a transition word such as although, since, but, therefore, however, is underlined, see if it works in the flow of the sentence. So remember, transition words are conjunctions, and the ones that I call transition words are actually adverbial conjunctions, the lawyer words like however, therefore, moreover. But the other kind of conjunctions are the fanboys are the coordinating conjunctions, and the subordinate conjunctions start a subordinate clause, and a subordinate clause is dependent upon the main clause. And I think, let me just really quickly look at skill 4. I'm pretty sure these are the ones that we had broken up into opposition words and cause and effect words. Yes. So remember, we had the two lists. One was cause and effect words, and those were like therefore, ergo, because, thus, and, so, and since. And those words were like if this happens, then this happens. And then opposition words, I said think about like a sport. You're opposing the other team. And so those are words like however, still, nevertheless, although, though, even though, and but. Okay. Skill 5, when a comma is underlined, ask yourself, should there be a pause here? So a comma just works like a pause. And it's as simple as that. Commas and pauses are used to set off a side note. And I taught you about appositives. Appositives positively tell you who it is or what it is. So Mrs. Wilson, my teacher, wants me to get an A on my exam. Mrs. Wilson, and then the appositive is my teacher, and there are commas around that. So Mrs. Wilson, comma, my teacher, comma, wants me to get an A on the exam. You could use parentheses too for an appositive, but an appositive is set off by commas. Skill 6, phrases that can stand alone are separated with a semicolon, a comma, or with and. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me say that again. Phrases that can stand alone are separated with a semicolon, with a period, or with a comma and actually all of the fanboys work. But this is where I said there's a main clause, and then there's a punctuation mark, and then another main clause. And the three punctuation marks that can set off a main clause and another main clause are a semicolon, a period, or comma um, and actually all of the fanboys work, but I guess on the ACT they just use comma and the word and. Main clauses are independent clauses, they're full sentences. All right. Skill 7, when a preposition is underlined, ask if it's the right preposition to use. So remember, a preposition shows position. If a mouse can do it to a hollow log, or you can do it to a trash can, then it's a preposition. So under, over, in, out, above, beneath, next, away, those are all prepositions, and you want to make sure that they use the right one. Skill 8, when I or me is underlined, try putting I or me there without the other person. So if I said, Mrs. Richardson and me go to Kroger after school, and I took away Mrs. Richardson and I said, me go to Kroger after school, that sounds silly. So we know that that would be I, Mrs. Richardson, and I go to Kroger after school. Take away Mrs. Richardson and then I go to Kroger after school. Makes sense. So we know that's the right answer. As far as it's is concerned, the only time it's has an apostrophe is if it is a contraction for it is. So it's a nice day outside. It is a nice day outside. That it's would have an apostrophe. But if I said the kitten licked its paws, no apostrophe because that's possessive. And in this case, it breaks the rule for possessive. So the kitten licked its paws, no apostrophe. Okay, skill 9, my uncle's books. Uncle's books, uncle apostrophe S, one uncle. And the books belong to the one uncle. If I say my uncle's books, uncle's apostrophe, that's more than one uncle with books that belong to them. So basically, I say that you use the apostrophe similar to a decimal. Wherever the next thing goes, you put the apostrophe there. So let me think if I can turn to that skill. Skill 8. I might have to do this in 2 videos because I'm already at 8 minutes and these videos can only be 10 minutes long, I think. So, I'm not seeing the apostrophes on this one. Oh, yes. Hold on, I'm going to see if I can rewind. Okay, I'm going to go back to skill 8 because there's something else I want to say. When we use who or whom, remember that he and I would have who with it. So if you want to use who, you replace it with he or I. If you want to use whom, you replace it with him or me, and both of those words have an M in it. That's how I remember. Okay, so if you're going to use whom, him or me would fit in place of the whom. Otherwise, it's who. Okay, now I'm on to skill 9. And the way that this works, this is the junk drawer of rules. Okay, the junk drawer of rules, the first one is apostrophes. And so if you have no S on the end, then the apostrophe goes next. Okay, so like something belongs to the teacher, it's teacher apostrophe S. If there is an S on the end, then it's the apostrophe goes after the S. So the apostrophe just comes next. Whatever you've got, if it's teacher and something belongs to the teacher, it's teacher apostrophe S. The teacher apostrophe S, the teacher's desk, one teacher. If it's more than one teacher shares the desk, it's the teacher's apostrophe desk. If it's children is plural, but there's no S. So if it's the children's mother, children apostrophe S. Wherever the next thing comes, that's where the apostrophe goes. So it's similar to a decimal. Oh, it's let me go over 10 minutes. Yay. Okay. Then sometimes the ACT just randomly puts an LY on a word and it's not a word. So look out for that. Be on the lookout. BOLO. And then which, remember the word which is for things. That is also for things. And who is for people. So it's raining outside, which is a bummer. Or I ran into my enemy who then punched me in the nose. Okay, so that's a person. And then certain words go together, and I call those teeter-totter words or seesaw words. So if you have neither, you're going to have nor. If you have either, you're going to have or. And if you have not only, you're going to have but also. So just like a teeter-totter takes a friend to make it go up and down, those words need each other to go up and down. Okay, skill 10. Skill 10, the ACT likes crisp and clear, and we always want the answer that is the most concise, direct, and non-redundant. So redundant means to repeat. We don't want to do that. So on the English test, nice and short and sweet. Okay, skill 11, the descriptive phrase on the ACT must be clearly associated with the noun that is described and usually right next to it. So those are the dangling modifiers. It sounds kind of funny, but you want to make sure that you're talking about it right where it belongs. And I'm going to see if I can give you an example quickly. Let's see if I can find an example. I don't think I have a good one. Oh, yes. Okay, so this was about the farm and the apartment. Remember how we had the fresh air and we wanted the grandparents' farm was opposite of my apartment in the city with the fresh air of its open pasture. And so since the fresh air and the open pasture were right next to the apartment, it sounded like the fresh air was describing the apartment. So the correct answer on that one was my grandparents' farm with the fresh air of its open pasture was the opposite of my apartment in the city. So whatever you're talking about, you want the descriptor to be right next to it. And then the next one is 12. Make sure that the underlined word fits the context of the sentence. So just remember that there are words that have connotation similar to like fat and thick have different connotations, or croaked and passed away have different connotations. And so you want to make sure that the connotation and the word fit into the context of the sentence. And then for 13, flow is similar to the flow of a song. You want things to kind of go together and make sense. The mantra is using process of elimination. You just want it to make sense. You don't want it to sound awkward. Um, and then skill 14, for goal questions, you're going to answer the goal of the question. There's a goal in the question. You need to answer that goal. And then for skill 15, there are yes or no questions. And you want to answer properly, yes or no. That is nice because then it takes it down to 50% of the question that you can get right. And then you want to make sure that you can answer all of the question in its entirety, not just part of it. So those are the mantras for the English test, and that will help you to be mindful of how to answer your questions. You will have those mantras stapled to your bubble sheet so that you can refer to them. Good luck, and I will see you in class.